Hello, everyone. We are back for another episode of Black Cat Crossing. Well, most of us. Z and Barry couldn't be here today, so you'll be hearing from me, Ash, and Sully. Say hello.
Hi, I'm Sully.
Time to take that drive, cuddle up with a snack, or go for your walk, or even start cleaning your home. Whatever you fancy doing while you listen. This month, we're going to talk about werewolves, their folklore origins, crazy facts, and some legendary shapeshifters. We hope you'll enjoy this episode as much as we will. Let's get into this. Okay, so the origin of werewolves. Up first, we have the earliest mention of werewolves in the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Around 2700 BC, there was a king named Gilgamesh that ruled Uruk in Mesopotamia in modern-day Iraq. Gilgamesh was such a profound leader and hero that the Epic of Gilgamesh was written to retell his stories of when he ruled. For he was seen as more than just human, he was a demigod. Gilgamesh had reigned for 126 years and was well known for wanting to be immortal. This poem is connected to the history of werewolves due to it being the oldest written story of a man turning into a wolf, along with another man being described as beastly and living in the forest. Our beast man was named Enkidu. He was actually created and sent to kill Gilgamesh. This was due to the gods being angry at King Gilgamesh for being brash and conceited. Enkidu had lived in the forest like a beast and had to be taught how to eat like a human. Once he was strong enough, he dueled Gilgamesh. Many throughout the kingdom believed the two were equally matched in strength, but this was not true. Gilgamesh had defeated Enkidu, yet strangely enough, this led to a binding friendship that became the poem, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Later, Gilgamesh was being seduced by the goddess Inanna. We'll go with Inanna. It sounded very weird in the pronunciations. She had been smitten by his strength in defeating the cedar forest demon Humbaba, but Gilgamesh was not intrigued by his seduction. He dismissed Inanna's advances due to her previous treatment of her past lovers, calling Inanna out for once turning a shepherd into a wolf, along with many other horrendous things to other men. Kinda don't blame the man. She sounds like a nightmare of an ex-girlfriend / girlfriend. Poor Enkidu ends up dying because he had to help defend Gilgamesh from being killed in an angry bull Inanna had sent in retaliation for being dismissed. Though this was not a tale that man turns into a werewolf per se, it cannot be ignored. Even in the 2700 BC, the idea of beastly men and a man actually becoming a wolf was not so far-fetched. Perhaps these stories are the truth, or perhaps they are a lesson to be taught. Everyone has a beast inside, but the more society develops into so-called civilized people, the less the beast can be released. We will see how the stigma of the vicious instincts and actions are portrayed throughout the rest of this episode.
So we will go into this by talking about the Nordic folklore, the saga of the Volsungs. The saga of the Volsung is a popular Nordic folklore tale about the Volsung family lineage, magic, and skin changers. In the 13th century AD, there was a man named Odin who had a son named Sigi. Sigi had become a king of the Huns with the help of his father Odin. His rule had actually started with a murder, and becoming an outlaw, it was Odin who led Sigi to an army to control and rule. Later, Sigi married his wife, who bore him a son named Rifir. Once in his old age, Sigi had been betrayed by many close to him, including his wife's brothers. After Sigi's death, Rifir took revenge, and all that once belonged to his father became his, leading Rifir to become a more powerful king than his father Sigi. Bear with us, there is plenty more to this story. Now that Rifir has become king, he had found himself a wife, but they were unable to conceive a child. Due to heartache, Rifir prays to Odin, yes, that would be technically his grandfather, who is a god of some sort. Anyways, Odin tells the goddess Freya that Rifir needs a child. So she then goes and talks to Hymnir, the giant to ask his, these names are so crazy.
Right?
Hymnir the giant to ask his daughter, who is in charge of fertility, to help. Freya gives an apple to Hymnir's daughter, and then she gives this apple to Refir. Just wait, it gets weirder. This apple was able to allow Refir and his wife to conceive a child, but the child was in the womb for 6 years. Not even elephants. Not even elephants gestate for that long. Oh my god.
No, thank you.
You heard me right. It was 6 years. Can you imagine that?
No.
The sad part was Refir died before he could even meet his child, and his poor wife decided she didn't want to be pregnant anymore and asked for that baby to be taken out. Yet, as soon as the man-child is removed or born, she dies. That is so sad.
Could you even imagine? Like, I wonder how much longer that child would have just stayed in the womb if she hadn't physically, like, gotten it taken out like a C-section.
Yeah, and you know what the other thing? It's always you always there's always some catch when it comes to something from the gods. When you're making a pact with a witch or something like even a genie, you have to be so specific in your request. They did conceive a child. But for 6 years, can you just carrying this child for 6 years? Oh my god.
I'm surprised she waited 6 years to have the baby removed.
Wow, that was just so crazy. So, Volsung, the king of Hunland, was the man-child born as Refir's son. He grew to be a powerful king and the greatest warrior. Well, remember, Hymnir's daughter who gave the apple? Well, her name is Ljod. So, Ljod and Volsung got married and had 10 sons and 1 daughter. Oh my god.
Right?
The favorite children were the set of twins. 1 boy named Sigmund and 1 daughter named Signy. Don't worry though, the rest of the children are very successful in life. Anyways, on to our story. Signy was unwillingly betrothed to a king named Sigir. During this celebration, a mysterious cloaked man came and made a speech. Blah, 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 blah.
Well said.
Stuck a sword into a tree and claimed anyone who can pull this sword out gets a gift from the mysterious man and gets to keep the awesome sword. Everyone fails at the attempt to retrieve the sword except for the son of King Sigmund, who pulls it out as if it was stuck in butter. King Arthur vibes, right? Yeah. Surprise, surprise! King Sigir wanted this sword and offered to pay Sigmund for it. Sigmund refused. This pissed off King Sigir. On top of that, Signy ran away from her husband, King Sigir. This is hotter than the drama on TV.
I didn't even tell the whole story.
So she went to her father, King Volsung, who told her to be a good wife and go back to her husband. Wow. King Sigi was very unhappy, to say that was an understatement. Signy goes back to her husband, but the damage is done. A massive battle takes place between King Sigir and King Volsung. Volsung was slain during this war, but Signy's 10 brothers were held captive. Signy begged for their release, which was not granted. Instead, the 10 brothers were taken into the forest, into the stocks, and left to die. At midnight, a she-wolf would come each night and eat one of the, eat one of the brothers. On the 10th night, Signy came to help Sigmund, the last survivor. She gave him honey to rub on his face and place in his mouth. When the she-wolf came that night, instead of eating Sigmund, she licked his face. Sigmund was able to bite down on the she-wolf's tongue, and when the she-wolf pulled back to retrieve her tongue, Sigmund held down and the stalks were broken, freeing Sigmund. Wow.
Yeah. I like how she waits till like 10 brothers are dead to do this.
I know, right?
Also, like, I'm slightly disturbed. Just no thanks.
I know, right? So Sigmund ended up living in an underground house in the forest with the help of his sister to avoid being captured again. King Sigurd claims that all of the Volsungs were dead. Weirdly, there was a witch who convinced Signy to trade bodies with her. The witch goes to be with King Sigurd, while Signy goes to her brother Sigmund in the body of another woman. She ends up staying there with her brother for 3 nights in one bed, not as brother and sister. Cough, cough, in case you didn't pick that up. After these few days, the witch and Signy change back to their original bodies. Signy gives birth to a man-child named Sinfotli.
I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. I like how you say it.
And at 10 years of age, Sinfotli goes to live with Sigmund, where he proves he is worthy to live with him. Like, they eat venom and don't die of worthiness. Just what?
Yeah. He just, like, feeds him all the stuff. Like, they had to be manly men. And if they weren't, like, they weren't seen as good enough. So they literally just, like, fed him poisonous food. And if he survived, great. He's worthy. If not, that sucks.
Wow, you're dead.
Yeah. It was kind of passed out through the whole family. It started actually with the very first son and father and son duo that we came across. So it's part of the Volsung lineage trial.
That's what I would pass, honestly. I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that one. But it sounds to me like I get like the names are very Viking to me. Like, it sounds very Viking.
Yeah.
And it also makes me think a little bit of like maybe Spartan warriors for some reason, like the traditions and stuff.
Well, they said that the Vikings were kind of really obsessed with the wolves, so I think this definitely was probably part of it. I think this was more Viking in what they believed, and so it's interesting, like, that people actually believed this stuff, and we're like laughing, like, what, 6 years of being pregnant? And the random witch that just comes and is like, let's trade bodies. Okay.
Like, yeah, let's do it. Oh my gosh. And then what is up with them delivering man-childs? Like, how does that even work?
I think because when I first, like, that was what the text had said, man-child. And at first I was like picturing like an adult man.
Me too. That's
as a child. But I think they actually really meant, because they did all these trials, like eating poison and stuff. So like they came out like probably maybe a little more buff and more like braver. And I'm thinking more just beefier kids. They're not really adults. I mean, I could be wrong because this is a little crazy and out there, but I like to imagine that not a full man came out of that lady after 6 years, but maybe like a 6-year-old child.
Can you imagine that? Wow.
No.
Okay,
so yeah, it was. Yeah.
Right, sorry. So, but despite everything that I've just said, things are only just starting to get complicated. Okay. Sigmund believes that Sinfotli is actually the son of King Sigurd, but in the tale, it is insinuated that it is actually Sigmund's son and his sisters, but with a different body. So, well, Sigmund and Sinfolgi decide to get revenge for their Volsung lineage. So one day, when the two were out on an outing. They stumble upon a house with 2 sleeping men. Hanging above them were 2 wolf pelts. Without hesitation, the wolf pelts were claimed by the father and son. Yet, when the 2 put them on, they found that they were transformed into a wolf for 10 days straight. The text was adamant about the fact that Sigmund and Sinfulgi were aware of themselves while in wolf form, but they were also capable of understanding the wolf, such as the meaning of howls. Well, let's talk about a bloodbath. Once the duo was able to transform, they parted ways and killed many that crossed their paths. At one point, Sigmund had howled for help and Sinfulgi came to his aid. After this battle, they again separated. While on his own, Sinfultli came upon 11 men, but instead of calling Sigmund for backup, he killed the 11 men on his own. This pissed off Sigmund, causing him to attack. Oh my gosh. The family drama. This pissed off Sigmund, causing him to attack Sinfultli, and in a fatal bite upon the neck, Sinfultli would have died. But after the burst of anger, Sigmund saw a raven with a leaf that had healing powers. He took this leaf from the bird and placed it on the wound. Sinfultli was saved instantly.
Talk about some anger issues.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. Oh, just crazy. The two were able to kill King Sigir, and the truth of who Sinfultli's father had come to light. Signy tells Sigmund how she tricked him and that the two siblings made a son who is all Volsung's blood. After the truth comes out, Signy dies with her husband. This leaves Sigmund to become a king once again, where his father once was, while Sinfultli went on his own way. Honestly, there is so much more to this story, but the main part was the use of the wolf belts and how they used their powers to kill.
Yeah, there was like 8 more chapters to this story.
Wow, it's very intense. And it's like a little bit, it's an intriguing story. It's so fantastical to me too. It's something I'm genuinely curious about it.
Oh, you should definitely read it. Like it's fairly easy to read, but there's just a lot, and I feel like I left out a lot of details writing this because it was just kind of unnecessary to the point that we're trying to talk about werewolves. But yeah, I thought it was.
That's the thing. I was just saying it's all part of the story.
Yeah. Well, what I thought was interesting, and I didn't finish the whole poem of the oh my gosh, what is it called? The Nordic, the saga of the Volsungs, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought it was interesting that the next few chapters it started to talk really about Sigmund, who like became king, and he was very like great, like he was very powerful, but then like they did a Sinfultli, is that how you said it? The son of Sigmund, and the he's like pure blood Volsung. Mm-hmm. He kind of just got like wiped away. Like there was just like they didn't talk about him. I was like, wait, like, he's like pure Volsung.
You just forgotten all about him.
I mean, he's probably brought up later in the story, but it was just like it went on to talk about Sigmund and his other kids, and I was like, wait, what? That's what?
Totally was wiped from the memories.
Yeah. Yeah. I went down the rabbit hole with this one, so it was pretty fascinating, I thought.
Yeah, it's a good story for sure.
I like though the different, we'll keep reading about it, but the different ways that the wolf is brought up, like compared to like the Glamesh, where it was just like someone was turned into a wolf out of revenge kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then this one, they found wolf pellets and used it to their advantage. It was not somebody turning him into it like to like punish them. It was to give them more power, essentially.
Yeah, it was like a magic pelt. But you know, when I was reading about when the she-wolf came, I thought it was going to be some type of connection in there. Like I thought, like maybe with him biting on the wolf, like some essence transferred or something like that. But it really wasn't. It really didn't have anything to do.
I know. I think that was really just like the Vikings in their love with the wolf, and it's in a lot of their stories and their beliefs that it just ended up being another she-wolf that was involved. Because I thought that too. I thought like, oh, maybe this is going to be how he turned. Nope.
And
it was weird because when doing all the research, every time this story was brought up, it actually only brought up the point that it was like a father and a son found wolf pellets in above 2 men, and they took them and became very violent, and then the father almost killed the son. And it was like just like that short tidbit. They didn't give you the whole
story of it. Yeah, like you had to go through for that one.
Yeah, I was like, that's it? Like, there has to be more to this story, so that, hence the rabbit hole.
It was good. It's a good one, for sure. Very
okay. Greek mythology, the legend of the lichen. So, in the poem Metamorphoses, written by Ovid in 8 AD, there was once a king named Lycon, who ruled over Arcadia. One day, the god Zeus decided to visit Lycon and disguised as a mere human. Lycon wanted to test his theory that Zeus was indeed a god that was pretending to be immortal. In order to trick Zeus, Lycon served Zeus human flesh. That is disgusting. It is. Some sources say this was actually one of the Lycon's own sons, while others say that it was a sacrificed boy that was killed and cooked to be presented to Zeus. Either way, Zeus was furious and at the disrespect of being offered human flesh as a meal. Rightfully so, because this is disgusting and a little effed up. In his wrath, Zeus killed all 50 of Lycon's sons with bolts of lightning, and then he transformed Lycon into a wolf. Though it is to be noted that in some sources it is said that the sons were not killed but also turned into werewolves. Talk about angering a god. That was a mistake. Yeah, right? That's a mistake that can't be taken back. Poor dead kid. This... I was... It was very weird because I literally kept trying to get like a specific answer, like were the 50 sons also turned into werewolves and there was like this big pack? Or did he strike him down with bolts of lightning and that was the end of the sons? It was kind of confusing trying to look this one up. But we'll go more into this. In the Greek mythology, this tale of the strongest origin story when it comes to where the Lycon's name comes from. The Greek word lycos means wolf, so combining lycos in the name Lycon, the term lycanthrope is born, meaning humanoid wolf or a person turning into a wolf. But in many werewolf novels, Lycans can tend to be a stronger species than werewolves, but come from the same family. Well, that's my observation when I read my werewolf books. Anyways. There's also a Roman legend that is very similar to the Greek story. All the gods are the same except for their names, of course. Jupiter, instead of Zeus, is the king of gods. Yet in the Roman mythology, there is mention of a man named Morris. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name. Turning into a wolf with the use of herbs. This is found in the poem Eclogue 8, written by Virgil in 37 BCE. So I brought that up because we'll find later on that in the real stories, the use of herbs is actually mentioned a lot. So that was intriguing. And then the fact that the Greek and the Roman kind of had the same Lycan story.
Okay. That is interesting. It is.
The idea of a man turning into a wolf or werewolf is common. Not only do the Greek, Roman, or Nordic claim this idea, but many origin stories can be found across the world, such as South America and their story of El Labiton. Sorry. I'm sorry, whoever speaks Spanish.
You did good.
There's also in Ireland, France with the Luke group, Mexico with the Nagual and Nawal, in much of Eastern Europe, and is heavily influenced by werewolf and vampires. Even in Germany and its fairy tales, the Brothers Grimm wrote many stories that involved werewolves. For example, The Wolf and the Man, while the latest would be North America and the pop culture surrounding the mythology of werewolves. That's kind of like where we are nowadays. Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I didn't realize how broad, I guess, werewolves were, and that, I mean, it makes sense that other cultures would have a version of their werewolves, and we could have gone hours into discussing this, but like each group had a very different take on a werewolf, though, which I thought was very intriguing.
Yeah, but then at the end of it all, it's basically the same thing. I mean, like at the root of it, it's basically the same characteristics?
Yeah, from my understanding. I didn't go super deep into research about it, but like especially in France, there was a time period between the 1500s and the 1600s where instead of the witch trials, there was a werewolf hysteria.
Wow.
And so it was, I had no idea. And so like, I think there was an actual lot of wolves killing a lot of villagers, but then there was also like people that were doing it. And we'll read into kind of with the real medical conditions, why that was seen that way. But yeah, it was very fascinating.
It is, it sounds so. So we're going into the real medical conditions, like Ash just said. So there has been a lot of talk about werewolves and their origins, which mostly include outlandish stories older than what most of us can comprehend. But let's look at some of the facts that we know are true about werewolves as if they do exist in our modern world. There are real medical conditions that occur that would leave people believing in werewolves. One is called hypertrichosis.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. This is a genetic condition for both men and women involving the X chromosome, causing people to grow mass amounts of hair all over their bodies. This is a rare condition, but if you look at photos of this condition, you will see that it can cover the entire face, leaving the imagination close to the resemblance of a werewolf.
Have you ever seen a picture of this, Sully?
I think I have. I'm trying to, it looks, you know what I'm thinking? You remember a while back there was this ad, but it was like a caveman ad?
I think so.
I can't remember what it was about
Geico?
exactly. Maybe it might have been Geico, maybe. Yeah, I think like when I was reading this, that is what I was thinking. Like maybe it's something similar to that. But then I'm also thinking because there are times when I would watch like Living Different with the kids or stuff like that, and I think I may have seen this condition, but it's not 100% that I can remember fully.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of this condition before. It's very rare from my understanding, but it's intense to look at. Like when you see a photo, or I haven't met someone in person who has it, but I mean, you would have to definitely live to love yourself. Or I think some people even maybe get like waxed all the time. Oh, I couldn't even imagine like your entire face.
Yes, I was about to, can you imagine that?
Yeah, I don't know how common that would be. No, I couldn't. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That just sounds awful.
Yeah, very painful. I wonder if like laser hair treatment would do that, like laser hair removal would help reduce that. I wonder what, I need to look into it to find out what works for them.
Maybe, and that's maybe like also why we don't see it or hear about it as often nowadays. I'm just like picturing back into the 15th century though, and if some poor person had this condition, and oh my gosh, like that could definitely stir the pot with the crazies.
Exactly. Yeah, they would go so far with that. They would take it so far. You're right.
Right? Those poor people.
Mm-hmm. So earlier we discussed lycanthrope and how it meant a person turning into a werewolf, but there is another meaning to this term. Lycanthropy can be a physiological condition, according to Oxford, a form of madness involving the delusion of being an animal, usually a wolf, with correspondingly altered behavior. It is very possible for someone to actually believe that they are a werewolf, but it is all psychologically in their head. Wow, Ash, you put both of those words in that sentence.
Sorry. Well, at least I said it right, so you had it. It's probably like the two words I can't say.
Okay.
But yeah, I couldn't even imagine. I think I was watching an episode of Criminal Minds, and they had an episode that was kind of like this man believed he was a werewolf, and I didn't really think that was like a condition or a real condition until like I was reading about this. I'm like, somebody who actually believes they're a werewolf, and yeah, it's weird. Like,
Yeah, it is. Like, I can't even imagine that. Like,
right?
it's so foreign to me to even think about something like that.
Well, it's like it kind of makes you like wonder, like, we kind of we want the supernatural world to exist, but then we do, but then like, if it really did exist, and what if these people who claimed they're werewolves, but we're saying it's a medical condition, really are werewolves? Like, where does the line get drawn?
So in other words, typical human behavior. We always want something, but if it actually happens, we're like, nope. There's a reason for it. It's a logical reason.
Yeah, but maybe there isn't. But we like made one up.
Yeah,
it's just very slow.
On another topic altogether, I was having a discussion a while back with a friend of mine, and we were talking about like like some people, we say that they're crazy, and they need the medical assistance and stuff. But what if they're really not? They're just like, their mind is just opened, and they can see and feel things and experience things on a different level than we can. Like some people,
so they're
like some people, like when they stare off into space, sometimes you see like those lines and you see like little lines and stuff. Does that ever happen to you? Like when you're staring out, like instead of maybe looking at the sky, and then all of a sudden you see like clear patterns in front of your eyes, or like colored lines and stuff like that.
I don't know about lines, but I think I'm following. Maybe you have a supernatural power.
Maybe.
But that's like kind of your whole point. And is it like, what if they're just tapping into, I don't know, an alternate universe, or like they just see the world with an extra dimension that the rest of us don't, and we call them crazy?
And we say, yes, that person must be crazy because whatever, but that's not even really the case. So yeah, that's what basically my friend and I were talking about. And then it's like what we were just saying here, what just you mentioned, that maybe it's a real thing, that they really are werewolves, and we're just suppressing everything with all the medication that we're giving them and telling them, no, you're actually human,
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, they've made many books and movies about this concept. Like, I mean, Men in Black.
Yeah.
It's it can go either way.
That's
I really feel.
So this kind of begs the question: if someone was to tell you they were a werewolf or know of a werewolf, would you believe them? Or would you think they actually believe this, but it's all in their head? I think we all have read enough fiction stories that at one point or another we would love to believe that there's a supernatural side out there in the real world. But when would you start believing? Or would you stay in denial? This could all be real, but we talk ourselves out of the truth. Or are all the myths and stories made up due to not understanding the science behind every behavior at a time? This is literally what we just spoke about.
Yeah. Wait, so like, from everything we read so far, though, do you believe there were actual werewolves?
I like to think of it. I would prefer. I don't know. I was gonna say I would prefer werewolf over vampire, but I was thinking, vampire though. But so I would like the idea of it if they're not like mindless killers. Like, I like the romanticized idea of a werewolf, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I like the idea of them being loners and being maybe more of a protective type of species than, this blood hungry killer.
Hypermasculinity, that's what we like.
Yeah. I think that if we had to have it, that is what I would want. The romanticized version of it.
Okay, but here's my other part of that question. If they did exist, would you want to know about it? Or would you want to be like like you say, like they actually do exist now, but like the government or the werewolves have been so good about keeping their identity sealed that we just don't know? Or would you want to live in a world where werewolves are highly open? And I wouldn't say accepted because I don't know what kind of werewolves they would be, but like we would know of them and they would exist.
I think it still goes back down to what I like. If I, you know what, I'm thinking I would want to know, but I'm also thinking because I'm a warrior, right? I will worry about, you know, going out and what if something happens and whatever. That will be on my mind like for the most of the time. But again, it all depends on the type or how they portray themselves, and I guess too it would be similar to having like maybe having humans. There are some very good ones and there are some very bad ones, but what if all the werewolves are bad? Like, do I really want to know about it?
I like to stay in denial, please. No. Yeah, it's hard to say because like if you know about it, you could be prepared and like, oh god, that would, if werewolves did exist and we knew about it as a society, like that would change our whole system. Like we'd probably have an army branch just made for werewolves, or every citizen out there would be trained to deal with it. Like I don't know, like it would be very, very different.
Yeah, it would.
Or they would be on their own. They would have their own country, like, or would they just be integrated with everybody? Like,
I think they would probably be integrated, but you know, from history, from what I've seen in history, they would be segregated first in regards to like anything that we don't really understand, and they would have to be slowly integrated into society, and because I think too that they probably have like their own council. Mm-hmm. They would have their own council, quite possibly their own hierarchy and everything as well. But I think they would be integrated into our own society.
What if we're the odd men's out? What if there's more werewolves than humans and they're running everything already?
Then we will be shit out
we're screwed.
Yes. Exactly that. We will be shit out of luck. But this kind of reminds me of that movie with the apes. That's kind of scary. That's a scary possibility.
Planet of the Apes. I loved that series. Yeah, that exactly. It'd probably be very similar to that.
Yeah.
Hence why we have so many werewolves books, stories out there.
Yeah. But I think they would be heavily policed, and I think it would take so many years for them to be able to be fully integrated into society.
Yeah, I could see that.
Humans are just so skeptical and wary of some, understandably so. I mean, if there is a species out there that is more powerful than we are, that is more that, you know, with all those superpowers, more they just have the advantage over us.
Yeah.
We want to be the top dog. No pun intended. We want to be on top. So there's no way that would ever just happen, and everybody would be like, oh, that's fine, you know, we're fine with it.
Yeah, we would be knocked down in the food chain, and it would not be good.
Yeah.
So maybe we'd be humbled a little.
Maybe. Maybe, but I can see it. I imagine too that there'd be lots of those people who just go off on their own, and they go hunting. Not hunters, obviously, but like, oh, I forget the name. Like they would want, not like a witch hunt, maybe like a wolf hunt, like you said. They would just vigilantes, and they would just go out trying to hunt down werewolves or whatever. I think that's what would happen. But
yeah,
we've gotten so off topic.
That's okay. I mean, we did ask the questions.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, back to the medical conditions.
Yes. So another real possibility would be ergot poisoning. In France, there was a massive werewolf hunt, and ergot poisoning could have helped the panic that was caused in 1520 and the 1630s. Because when the ergot was consumed, hallucinations would occur. It would not be so far-fetched for people to assume someone was a werewolf and convict them on it without any real proof. because we have seen it done with witch trials. We can't forget about oh so lovely rabies. When bitten, it can take some time for rabies to start taking effect. But once in the later stages, a person who has rabies will start to foam at the mouth and act aggressively and typically are hallucinating. It would be easy to presume that a person was changing into a wild animal, cough, a wolf, due to their behavior while sick. Back in the heyday, people didn't have a lot of knowledge in the medical field. That shit would have been terrifying to see in person when you don't understand what's causing the wild behavior. It's happening right now, even when people behave wildly, we're like, what the hell is going on?
What's wrong with you? Oh, shoot.
Yeah. So next we have wolf hybrids. That's right. What could that possibly be? I don't know. Just kidding. It is a wolf and a dog that breed and create a wolf hybrid that is often aggressive and would attack. Because people didn't already have enough problems maintaining their village. So now we've got this hybrid that's introduced.
I think these were probably maybe more the wolves that were attacking, like especially the French villages, and had that wolf hunt. I think maybe they're more hybrids than actual wolves, because I don't think real wolves really attack humans. So
yeah, maybe not in I think they would though. I think even in all the survival games, they always tell you try to avoid the wolves because they will attack, and they normally attack in packs though.
Yeah.
But
okay, maybe you're right.
But I get what you're saying, that it could quite possibly be just the hybrid that's causing that, because they are of course a little bit more aggressive, and people might mistake them for just regular dogs. I mean, that's not the case at all.
I know, yeah, no thank you. I'd be like, come here puppy, let me pet you, and then attack you out of nowhere.
So porphyria is a medical condition that is a rare hereditary disease in which the blood pigment hemoglobin is abnormally metabolized. Porphyrins are excreted in the urine, which becomes dark. Other symptoms include mental disturbances and extreme sensitivity of the skin to light, according to the Oxford Languages. This sounds familiar. This condition could have been the reason why werewolves and vampires can be sensitive to light. And we
I didn't know that was like an actual condition, though.
Huh? I didn't know that either.
I didn't know. Yeah. I was like, how did we get through the whole vampire series and not know this?
Yeah. But it was different because that was just a different take on the whole, you know?
But I'm just
anything. I don't think there was anything really in the, because ours for vampires, it was based off of a curse from the gods.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, it was based off something else. Okay, so we can't forget collective hysteria, the spontaneous outbreak of atypical thoughts, feelings, or actions in a group or social aggregate. Manifestations may include psychogenic, illness, collective hallucinations, and bizarre actions, defined by the APA Dictionary of Psychology. I feel like enough has been said. It can be any thought like werewolves are real and people will believe anything. There are many examples of collective hysteria throughout history that are about anything and everything. We wouldn't have a paranormal podcast without the psychology of collective hysteria.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, one last interesting fact would be about the moon. In a case study done in Australia, they researched the relationship between the moon and violent behaviors such as lunacy. And the medical article, The Dark Side of the Moon, found that violent and acute behavioral disturbance manifested more commonly during the full moon. And most patients with violent and acute behavioral disturbance had indulged in alcohol, recreational drugs, or both. This study was intriguing because it was actually done to look at it through medical staff and first responders' perspectives as to why it seems to be busier during the full moon and a little crazier than other days during the month. There is a correlation between the full moon and more aggressive behavior, but they only had theories as to why this would be. For example, the bright moon messes with people's amount of sleep, causing sleep deprivation, or the water within the body is affected like waves in the ocean. In the end, they did see a correlation between a full moon and aggressive behavior, but these people also have a substance such as alcohol that was part of the equation. This could also be true for people back during the werewolf frenzy, but instead of alcohol, it was probably herbs that created hallucinations. These would be taken more often on a full moon, leading to the link between werewolves and full moons.
Oh yeah.
That's good.
I thought that article, I saw that and I was like, wait, what? Because I don't know. I thought the fact that it really wasn't researched and they still didn't really have like a reason why. Because I grew up with cops for parents, so the idea of like the full moon brings out the crazies is I hear all the time. So I was like, why isn't there more of a research study done on this? And it was, I thought, intriguing that they would drink more alcohol or consume more drugs. And maybe it's like kind of all combination, like maybe how the tides are affected by the moon, maybe the water in our bodies are. But they couldn't really prove that, or they didn't prove it in this research particularly. They just proved that there is a correlation. I'd love to.
Sorry, go ahead. You would love.
Oh, yeah, I would love to see it, more research done to see what actually causes human behavior to shift, I guess, during the full moon versus now that we know there is really a correlation.
But my thing is that it only happens to some people, not all. So why does it affect certain people that way, but not all?
Well, I think from what the article was trying to say was that it was people who were drinking or doing drugs that was who would be more affected. So yes, maybe I worded that wrong, but that's what I understood. So it was kind of like if you were drinking alcohol that night on a full moon, then you were probably be acting a little more crazy than normal, or if you're doing drugs. So, but that was like the part they really couldn't prove. So it'd be interesting to see if they further that research or if somebody else picks up on it. I'd love to read more about that.
Enjoying what you've heard so far? Be sure you never miss an episode by following us. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
So now we're getting into like real people who are being accused of werewolves, and we'll kind of see what we just talked about, the medical conditions and how they may have been applied to these real cases, or maybe they really were werewolves. We'll find out. So Giles Garner was our first person. In 1572, Giles Garner killed his first victim, a 10-year-old girl in a town dole. He removed all her clothing and ate the flesh of her arms and legs. Once he was satisfied, it was said that he took the remains to his wife to eat, or also eat. These acts would continue, leaving many married children being half-eaten. This led to a werewolf hunt taking place, yet when the huntsman found Garner, he was not a werewolf, but a man devouring the children. Once caught, he was tortured and confessed to killing 4 children. Gardner claimed he would turn into a werewolf because he was able to hunt better as one, while the reason he needed to hunt children was in order to feed his family. And it was only mentioned that his wife ate the meat, but I'm not sure if she knew what kind of meat it was or if his children also been eating the meat. But for this act, he was burned at the stake.
Rightfully so. That's beyond disgusting, and he just had psychological issues.
Yeah, but there's also like he was tortured for that confession, so like how much can you really read into this story? Like if he was tortured to confess he did these killings, he may have actually not been the one to do it.
But
he was just a cannibal
doing it? That's the other thing too, because it was said that um when the huntsman found him, he was not a werewolf, but a man devouring the children.
Yeah, they like found him on top of a child, and it didn't really like. I think he may have been eating, but I don't know. I feel like 1572 was a crazy time, and
That's true.
he probably was consuming the flesh, which is really disgusting. But like the
I
fact
think
that
that he was. You think maybe he was tortured into saying that I'm a werewolf when I do it.
maybe, or like maybe he thought like that hysteria, like werewolves were about, that he can claim it as like, I'm a werewolf and this is why I'm doing this, and maybe he'd get off with a lesser conviction or something.
That's
I don't know.
too. That's possible too. So, Peter Stubb. Peter Stubb was known for being the Bedburg werewolf. In 1589, the gruesome acts that Stubb had been hunted down and accused of killing 14 children and 2 pregnant women. Hunters at the time chased a wolf into the forest and managed to corner the animal. But instead of finding a wolf, the hunters found Stubb instead. They believed the wolf and Stubb to be one and the same because the left paw that was cut off the wolf mirrored the left hand Stubb was missing. Stubb had confessed to the brutal murders but was tortured during the interrogations. So we really can't be sure if he had committed these acts. It is said that he ate the flesh of the victims and there may have been some sexual crimes committed. Stubb had claimed that he had found a belt that provided the powers to shapeshift. But this belt was never located by authorities. He was executed for his crimes.
Yeah. I don't know what it is with them and children. It's kind of disturbing.
They're easier to lure away and hurt. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's probably right. I thought it was really interesting, though, that the whole town or the huntsmen all thought it was a wolf. And they claimed that the wolf's paw was cut off, and then Stubb was actually missing a hand.
And his name
So-
happened to be Stubb.
Yeah. I didn't catch that. But then it makes you beg the question, like, okay, like, how true is this story if his name is Stubb and he's missing a hand? Yeah, dude, they claimed he was a wolf first. Because it's not him claiming to be a wolf, it was the hunters that claimed him to be a wolf.
And again, with the torture.
Yeah. So, because I think for this one, like, it didn't actually, like, it didn't specify, and I could be wrong, that he actually was caught, like, killing somebody. So who really knows? Like, this could also be, like, the mass hysteria, like, they thought it was a wolf, but really it was just always a man. Or they were hallucinating because they ate some herbs that maybe they shouldn't have been. Yeah. So obviously somebody still died and they needed to have a trial, but it was just weird how they thought it was a wolf. And yeah.
It could be too that maybe they did run off a wolf, was like some hybrid of a wolf, but Stubb was also hiding in the woods or something. That's what I think.
I would have been like, if I was Stubb, I would have been in that corner when I was caught, but like, yo, I saw the wolf go that way. But one other thing I thought was really intriguing about this story was that they brought up the belt that had changed him into a werewolf, because that is back to the Nordic version, the pellets that changed to werewolves. But think about like how much those stories had maybe influenced the culture in all these different countries.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think for him, I think he was just tortured and he just wanted to stop and they're like, well, if you say that you were a wolf, then you wouldn't have to go through this anymore or something. And he was like, okay, well, I'm the wolf. That's how I feel. I mean, despite the fact that he did gruesome things, the fact that they're trying to torture a confession out of them, at that point people will just say anything just for the pain to stop. you know?
Yeah. But like the idea though of the pellet or a belt that would shapeshift.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Clearly, it showed. Yeah.
It was a good one.
Okay. We got two more. There were so many. Okay. Manuel Blanco Romasanta.
Roma Santa.
God. Okay. So this is Manuel's story. The werewolf of Alvarez was a man named Manuel Blanco Romasanta. Yet for the first 6 years of his life, he was actually known as Manuela. Okay, that was supposed to be Manuela. You see, Manuel had some birth defects that confused the doctors when he was born on November 8th, 1809 in Spain. He had come from a wealthy background and had a decent education once he was seen as a male. As an adult, Manuel was short and he was only about 4'6" to 4'11". He became a successful tailor and even married, though his marriage was short-lived due to his wife passing away in 1833. This was another turning point for Manuel. His life had again abruptly changed. He became a traveling salesman and tour guide throughout Spain and Portugal. Well, in 1844, Manuel was charged with the murder of a constable who was collecting the debt. Manuel was charged and convicted for his murder and was supposed to serve 10 years in prison. But he was actually never arrested and was on the run. In 1852, Manuel was arrested and convicted of another 13 murders. He killed women and children he was hired to help. And he had gruesomely mutilated their bodies, sold off their possessions, and ultimately was found due to him making soap out of human fat. In court, Manuel gave the defense of oh gosh, how do you say this, Sully?
Lycanthropy.
Yes, thank you. I'm not even going to try to say that right now. He was trying to be a werewolf. He was claiming that was his defense. Let's say this was a defense not very convincing. His tale consisted of meeting two wolves in the forest who were transformed into two people in the forest who were transformed into wolves. He became a werewolf but would get hungry. This is why he killed the women and children. Yet when the court asked him to prove his claim, they wanted him to shift right there in the middle of the court. Manuel said he could not because the curse only lasted 13 years. By the time he could no longer be a werewolf. Surprise, surprise.
Right.
The court did not right. The court did not believe Manuel's claims. He ended up in prison and died there for unknown causes. Some would say he was even considered Spain's first serial killer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I like that his curse to be a werewolf had a 13-year span, and it just so happened to be after he got caught that it went 13 years are up. Sorry.
How convenient.
Right? But again, this is not the first time that we hear that the werewolves do actually have a time limit, because the Nordic one, they had 10 days, and then they get... Yeah. So...
That's interesting. So,
yeah.
Go
ahead.
The fact that he was killing people and using their fat for soap. Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta give him credit. He was putting everything to use, I guess.
Yes.
The fact that that's how he got caught. Like, oh, gross.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
I wonder how many people bought that soap and then didn't realize it. Yeah. Now I'm going to be cautious of buying soap now.
I know, right?
Oh
my god.
Nowadays, I feel like that'd be the perfect cover-up. Nobody murder anybody.
It would be. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the Beast of Gévaudan. In 1764, the first victim was named Jean Boulet, who was only 14 years old. This lovely beast was well known for attacking women and children throughout France. These were maniacal murders with throats torn out and heads literally chewed off. I can only imagine the pain those poor victims went through. The beast got its name after the isolated town named Gévaudan. He had ended up taking at least 300 lives. What was crazy was during this time, the 7-Year War had just ended and all news had to go through the king and was censored. This meant that for a long time, the deaths of the villagers and the presence of the beast were unknown to the public. It wasn't until an author named Francis Moranis created a new type of reporting called Courrier d'Avignon. Now the daily news of actual events that were taking place is being written. The beast of Gévaudan spread far and wide. The beast hunt begins with many men giving chase to capture the beast. There were traps set, men dressed as maidens to lure him.
Can you just imagine?
Yeah. The beast was described to be a mass wolf-like creature the size of a horse or lion that could walk on hind legs. There were even rumors that he could repel bullets. At one point, a wolf was killed and given to the king to claim a reward, but only 2 months after, attacks began again. He did not give any more aid to the people. For 18 more months, the poor town was victimized with another 30 to 35 more deaths. It wasn't until Jacques Castel, a local farmer, shot and killed the beast with a single bullet on June 19th, 1767. Jacques Castel claimed that the bullet was made of silver, and this is where the idea of silver bullets can hurt werewolves may have originated. This would also explain why the beast, who was difficult to hunt and seemed to be bulletproof, was taken down with a single shot. So, it was just this giant werewolf, not werewolf, it was just this giant wolf that was attacking and terrorizing the village.
So this one, like, they actually think it was like a werewolf, like he was massive and he walked on his hind legs. Like, I think he's really like the image of a werewolf that we picture when it's like a big, grossly monster of a werewolf. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is where like that hysteria, collective hysteria kind of came in. Mm-hmm. It really maybe was just a big wolf and people took it way past that point. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was, they like claimed that they couldn't kill him. And then one single bullet took him down. Yeah. But also 300 lives taken. So maybe it was just multiple wolves. I think I read that somewhere that it was probably that was realistically what happened, was that there was multiple wolves killing people, but they just assumed it was one giant beast.
My other thing too is that I think this one is probably the only story where the beast remained the beast and it wasn't a human behind it, even after it was killed. So you could very well be right that it was just a case of wolf pack hunting, and they were just maybe bigger than average wolves or something.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that they didn't actually name him as a person. But it was also kind of that weird time, like where all the news did have to go through the king before and was censored. So it was saying like for a long time, people didn't even realize people were being killed in these villages until after that new reporting came out. And I can't even, like, could you imagine being in a village and like people are being murdered around you day after day and nobody knows about it? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it probably happens all the time in different places, but yeah.
You're just going about your daily life. You're not taking any precautions because you just don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah. I did like, though, that to attract the beast, the men dressed up as women.
Yes, that was pretty funny. I like that one.
Oh, gosh.
Do you have a personal paranormal experience you want to share? We would love to hear it. You can drop us an email at blackcatcrossingzabs@gmail.com or reach us on Instagram at blackcatcrossing, on Facebook at Black Cat Crossing Podcast, on Twitter at blackcatcrossy2, or on our website www.blackcatcrossing.co.
Thank you for joining us this month for our discussion on werewolves. We hope you enjoyed our time in the unknown. You can also join the discussion over on Discord when you become a Patreon subscriber, or join in for free on the other discussions of the paranormal. We will see you next time in the unknown.